Yo YouTube, this is my video for Monday the 19th of August. It was a bit of an unusual day because I started the work on the day before Sunday. So my stats, which I'm going to give you, are as accurate as I can make them, based on it being a job over 2 days, or it's one job over 2 days. So the first figure is my pence per mile for my fuel, so 13.29 for that. I drove a total of 470 miles, 470, and I worked for a total of 13 and a half hours over the 2 days. I earned from one CX job and one non-CX job £425, 425, and I spent on fuel £62.46. That means that after my fuel costs are taken into account, I've earned £363. So let me tell you all about that experience. On Friday last week, I managed to get the non-CX job given to me, which was picking up on Sunday and delivering by 9 o'clock on the following Monday. And for that job, I was given, for a long wheelbase van job, for 179 or so miles loaded, although I had to do a few more miles to collect it, it was £275, 275. Now, before I move on, I have to say that there was some handballing with this. There was some dead miles that I had to do to get to the pickup point, but despite those things, I thought that was a very fair price for the job that I was going to do. Bearing in mind it was a Sunday pickup and holding the goods overnight, I thought it was a fair price, and I was very grateful to receive that work. And again, it was a non-CX job, so I think because it was a non-CX job with a good shipper, the rate of pay was very fair. And you can't really, as far as I'm aware, get that sort of level of fairness very often from the CX bidding process. So this does reinforce a point that lots of people have made over the years, or over the months, that you really need to try to get work that's not bidding through CX system. Now this wasn't my own customer, so I haven't got my own customer here. What this is my preferred way of doing that, which is to make contact with reliable and fair shippers, and then do a good job for them, and then hopefully be in a position to gain work that they get before it goes to the CX system. Now a lot of that will depend on whether I'm in the right place at the right time, which I can't necessarily control. But you wouldn't necessarily get that rate of pay from a CX bidded job. Right, so moving on. So I was approximately 2 hours away from the pickup. The pickup was in Holt in Norfolk, and it's dropping off in Stockport the following day. And the instructions were to arrive on site at 10 o'clock on the Sunday. So I left my house at 8 o'clock, and I arrived just about 10 minutes before 10 o'clock. And I was very pleased to see that there were people on site, because I was prepared for the fact that I might need to wait. And luckily they were there, and after I reversed my van down this very narrow sort of lane, very long, but quite a narrow one, scratching a bit of the side of the van with some brambles. But I'm not precious about my van because I've got an old van. I'm not precious about that sort of thing. If I had a new van, I'd be pulling my hair out, which is another reason why I don't tend to go for new vans. There's a lot of reasons, but I like a reliable old van rather than necessarily the kind of ego boost of having a new van. And what I want to say about this experience was the guys that are on site were very friendly and very helpful. There was a whole multitude of working class accents going on, and they helped me load my van from the items that they wanted me to carry. And I did struggle. I was in the back of my van, and I was sort of stacking up in my van as best I could the items that were given to me as they brought them to the back of my van. And some of the items were heavy, but most of them were quite light. And being on my feet for quite a lot of time, in comparison to other jobs you do, I was beginning to get an issue. And also, I was very thirsty. I was sort of a bit dehydrated, I think, as well. So I did the best that I could. I then had to go and have a drink in the cab of my van, and they just finished off loading up my van. I was probably about 3/4 of the way through the loading process by this point, but I just could not carry on without making a bit of a fool of myself. So I did that. They finished off the loading of the van, and then I was done. And I was finished and off site by about 10:15, which I thought was really good. So I then had a decision to make, which wasn't really, in the end, not really a decision. What was I going to do in terms of delivering this item? I've missed out something. Go back to Friday. When I got this job, I was trying to find a job that would fit in from Stockport for when I delivered. And I was really, really fortunate in some respects to win a job, but I went a bit lower than I would usually do, but not a lot. And I actually won a job on Friday, picking up from Oldham, which was only when I looked at it 20 minutes away from where I was, and it was asking for pick up from 9 o'clock, or at 9 o'clock, should I say. So I spoke to the shipper of the first job, and they said that I could go in an hour earlier than originally planned. There'd be someone on site to offload their load. So I'd sort of planned to be at Stockport at 8 o'clock, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, get offloaded by about past, and then I'd have 20 minutes to get across to Oldham. And that job that I got was taking me to King's Lynn. And that job that I won was 161 loaded miles for a short wheelbase van, and I got that for £150, 150. And it was only 10 miles away from my drop off in the morning, about 20 minutes drive. So when I finished my work on Friday, actually no, was it Friday or was it Saturday morning? I think that was the day I did the late one, wasn't it? So actually, when I finished my work very early in the morning on Saturday, I had in the bag these 2 jobs for this week, which is why, if you've seen my videos from last week, I was in quite a positive mood about this week. So my plan was to get myself to Stockport for 8 o'clock, and originally I was going to leave about 9 o'clock in the evening on Sunday, and then tramp outside the depot to be there in time for the morning. And then I realised you can't do that. There's a whole van full of stuff. There's nowhere to lie down. So I had to change my plan, and that was then became leave in the morning on the Monday to get up to Stockport in time for everything to happen. So that was my plan. And I had some anxiety about getting to Stockport in time, and also also getting unloaded in time. And I thought if I get to Oldham by 9, the day is then going to turn out really well. So I then went home from Holt and just had the rest of the day off work. And then I woke up the following morning at 4 o'clock. It was still quite dark. I managed to have a shower, have breakfast and do everything I need to do. And I was out of the house at 4:30, which gave me a 3.5 hour window to get to Stockport by 8 o'clock. And the actual Google Maps was saying it was more like a 2 3/4 hour journey. So I felt that I had a pretty good chance of getting there. My only concern at this point was I know I'm going to be fine when I leave my house and get the A1, but by the time I get to Stockport, will it be really busy and will I get delayed? But as it was, the journey up there was really good. It obviously got light about 6 o'clock-ish, and then I arrived on the drop-off site about 7:20. There was someone there who let me use their toilet, which was the most pressing thing at that point. And then I waited until there was the guy there to help me offload. And I remembered his name from before. I think it's a really good name personally, but you know, we all have our own tastes. And so when he arrived, it was about 7:50, and then we sort of offloaded my van. To be fair, he did more of the lifting than I did, but he was a really friendly guy, and I recognised him from before, and we had a little bit of a chat, and then I was off site by 8. So at this point in time, really happy about how things are going. So I got myself to Oldham, and just as a slight aside, I find it really interesting how close these northern towns around Greater Manchester are. Because you hear them usually through football results on Saturday afternoon. You know, Bury, Bolton, Blackburn, Oldham, but they're all so close together around Manchester. And obviously over the years, Greater Manchester's just grown up to expand to sort of make this all one metropolis. I wonder if sort of 30-40 years ago it was separate towns that have just sort of been linked up in the meantime. Obviously Stockport's another one. Warrington is a bit further out I suppose, but it's sort of quite close to Manchester. So yeah, it's quite, where I live, you go, the nearest town is a good half an hour, I think it was an hour away. Half an hour at least, yeah, Peterborough's half an hour away. Boston's 40 minutes away. Right, so I got to Oldham at 9:40 to the pickup point, and I went to find one of the guys in the goods out, and he said that he didn't know anything about what I was there for. There wasn't anyone in the office until sorry, no, I arrived. Sorry, no. I arrived at 8:40, and then when I got there, the guy at the goods inn said there's no one in the office till 9. So I waited around until about 9:10. There's no one in the office. I went back into the goods in bit. There was other drivers waiting, and one other driver waiting at that point. And the long and short of it is, I rang the shipper to say after half an hour that I was still not loaded. But at least by that point, I wasn't reassured that they knew what they were giving to me. And this is where it got a little bit annoying. Is not quite the right word, but at the time it was. So I rang the shipper and explained that I had been there half an hour and what was their policy on waiting time. And they said that they don't pay until an hour of waiting. Now, I don't like that. I think that's really unfair for a driver. And this was for a franchise of a national sort of shipper, and I know that other members of their franchise in other areas have different terms. Now, having had the experience of this and looking back on it, I think that this particular customer of theirs seems to be quite notorious for being late with their goods. It was a manufacturer, and they were still making the stuff when we arrived. There's me and two of the drivers waiting. We were all working, I think, for the same company, same shipper. So it seemed to me that this was a par for the course for that company, and so I'm guessing that franchise just made that up because it's that customer. Because I look back at their terms and conditions on my app for that particular franchise, and there's no mention of any waiting time being an hour. So I said to the guy, well, I'm not particularly happy about that. These are my terms. This is what I would like to have. This is my rate. But I'll leave that with you, and then we'll see what happens when we finish. And because I'm really not into conflict, I would just rather leave it at that, and then make it clear what, if I've got a different view, make clear what my view is, and then hopefully when we come to the end point, have some sort of negotiated agreement. It doesn't always work. In this example, I ended up being on site until 9:40, so sort of 10 minutes beyond the half an hour that I was usually doing free. So in the end, I just didn't bother worrying about that. I was just pleased that I was the first driver off site. The other two drivers were still waiting, and I think they could have been there for quite a while. So I made my way from there to King's Lynn. It was a nice journey, and I arrived at the other at my delivery point at 1:35. So by the time we got uploaded and done the podding and the photos, it was something like 1:45. And at this point, I'd made enough money for the day, and I was sort of bidding on some work. There's only about 5 or 6 over the next hour or so. There's about 5 or 6 jobs that I bid on, but I noticed I was bidding quite high on all of them, and I sort of didn't feel I needed to go too low or too. I wasn't in my usual bidding process. And there was a job I know going from sort of King's Lynn to London, which I didn't want to do, but I put a bid on in the end. But I put crazy money on that, so that'd be a great amount of money to have, but I don't really want to do it. And in the end, after about an hour or so, I just went home. It was about 45 minutes away. I went home and had an early day, which I thought was the right thing to do in the end, because I realised I wasn't really super engaged with trying to get a job at a sort of inverted commas normal rate. So that was the story of that day, of Monday, and it gave me a really good start to the week. I've basically got 2 days of work this week to go, 2 full days of work after this week, to try and replicate that amount of money in 2 days. Maybe a little bit more. I need to get a bit more, but I should be able to make my target this week without too much problem. Right. Okay. I want to talk a little bit now about something I was thinking about on Monday that sort of seemed to make sense to me, at least, and that is this constant toing and froing, this constant sort of discrepancy between people's views on dead miles. And I'm going to describe the way that I see the situation. And in order to do that, I'm going to simplify people into 2 groups. And I think that's a really unhelpful way sometimes to do things, because we end up tending to think of things as in binary when people are not anything like binary. But for the purposes of this, I'm going to first of all introduce my idea in 2 binary separate bite sizes, and then I'm going to sort of explain where the grey areas come in from each side. first of all, I'm going to talk about my approach to dead miles. And I really don't care about dead miles. There are various metrics that one can use in this to judge performance or judge, how to price stuff. But the only metric that I care about is how much money have I earned at the end of the week, and does that cover what I need to earn? And whether I do a lot of dead miles or not a lot of dead miles, it really doesn't matter to me. It's such an important part of what I do. But when I started this job and sort of looked at YouTube, there were quite a few people, and people who still really have a critical approach to that and think that dead miles should be minimised. And I've been thinking over the time, well, why is that? Why is there such a lot of people who would really prioritise dead miles over a lot of the other variables? And then I thought, maybe this is the answer. I was trying to put myself into the shoes of other people, because I'm just a sole, single person on my own in my van. I've got no desire to expand my business, to bring on more people, or to grow a brand or anything like that. I'm just in this to earn enough money to cover my bills, both the business costs and the personal costs. But then I thought, what about other people? What do they do this for? So this is the second sort of type of person, and it's people that are kind of running a proper commercial business, who are perhaps looking to or are employing other drivers, not just themselves, and they perhaps want to grow their business into something more than just a single driver. And I was thinking, well, if you're that person and you're running that business, what you do is you look at your cost base very carefully, and then the biggest costs for this job, I would say, is twofold. It's van depreciation or van replacement, that's the same sort of thing, and fuel costs. And the single factor that can reduce that cost, or those costs, there's one factor that can reduce those costs, and that's a business to reduce the number of miles that we're referring to here as being dead miles. I'll define dead miles in this context as being miles that you do in your van, but you're not being paid specifically to do those miles. So if you're running a business and you're trying to make enough profits to grow your business, then it makes absolute sense to me that you're going to look at those margins and the bottom line, and you're going to try and reduce any sort of erroneous cost that you can. And therefore, reducing dead miles is the best way of doing that. Because in that situation, that business owner needs to earn enough money to pay their business costs, enough money which would include, in this case, other drivers, and enough money to give themselves a wage, or either through a salary or dividend for themselves. But they also need to have extra money to grow the business, so sort of to have a profit and to grow the business to something bigger. And I don't have that problem. I don't need extra money to grow my business. So when I thought about it in those terms, I can absolutely see how someone who's growing and running a bigger business needs to be more mindful of dead miles. But I can also see, and I hope that you people out there who are in that position can also see, people like me, there are lots of us who don't need to make a profit beyond what we need to survive, are just in this to make enough money to pay our bills. And therefore, dead miles are not that important for us. And I'm not the only person. There are other people that I've come across that would agree with that. The point is, there's not a single right answer. Saying to someone, you must reduce your dead miles, without knowing whether they're trying to grow a business or just look after their own expenses, is not helpful and not particularly informative. And saying to someone, don't worry about dead miles, when you don't know if they're trying to grow a business or just do it for themselves, again, it's equally unhelpful. So I can see there's two types of people here. People who are running let's call it a commercial business and trying to grow, and people that are just running a business to cater for themselves. And that's where I see the discrepancy. Not the discrepancy in the views about what's important. Now, I said at the start, I'm going to sort of but make this a binary thing, and I don't like that, but it made it simpler for me to make the argument. I want to sort of look at the grey areas, because we're all unique people with our own points of view. So what about those people that are running a commercial business, but they're actually looking to retire, and maybe they are looking to sell on their business, or maybe looking to pass it on to someone else, and they might be less concerned about the dead miles than a typical growing business might be, because maybe they don't need to grow anymore, maybe they've got as big as they need to get, maybe they don't need to have that extra profit. So there's people that could be running a commercial business that might be less bothered about dead miles, although I think that's unlikely, but it's possible. If you're coming to the end of your career, you might just think, I'm not bothered with that anymore, I just want enough to live off. And on the other side of the scale, let's say you're on your own, running your own van on your own, let's say you aspire to build a business. Maybe you're younger, maybe you're trying to create and build something. Well, then in that case, it makes more sense for you to be more concerned about the bottom line and to be more concerned about dead miles. I'm going to make it clear here, because I'll make it absolutely clear, I don't think age has got anything to do with it. I can see that somebody who is perhaps in their 50s or even 60s but has the energy and enthusiasm might want to grow a business from nothing to something bigger. And also I can see people who are perhaps in their 20s or 30s just being happy to have it like a job and just earn enough to cover their expenses. So I don't think age is the factor. I think it's what you're trying to achieve is the defining factor as to how you look at it. And there'll be people that are kind of on all aspects of that spectrum who will think about things that are in terms of dead miles, think about them in different ways. And what I want to try and get across here is, I've made it clear in my videos what I'm doing this for. So I don't really see, and what I've reacted against is people telling me what to do, which I've said before. But now I've tried to explain, I can understand why you think that's right for you, but can you understand why it's not right for me? That's my sort of end there. Right, moving on. I've got a question, a genuine question, and I thought I may as well put this to my audience. And it's in relation to, I'm going to touch on my therapy, because I did that, I'm doing that now, and I'm not going to give you specifics about what I'm talking about, because that isn't important or relevant. But what I am going to say is, I had my second session now, and it is still a positive experience. There's stuff that I'm kind of analysing through it, and it's working for me. I feel very positive about the process so far, and I can see that with a few more sessions I can start to enact some changes in my life that would really benefit me. And one of the things that today I wanted to do is I wanted to sort of start writing down some of the little things that I'm sort of analysing about the thing that I'm going to address, which I'm not going to go through right now, it's too early. But there's something I want to address that I think will be really important for me. But I'd like to document as I come across each little step at the start, from where I am now to the next bit. I want to sort of document all the little things that make it possible. And I think I'm going somewhere. I'm on a bit of a journey. Anyway, the point is, I can't really write very clearly. I'm in the van a lot, and I like to type stuff, but I can't because I'm driving. So as I think of things, I thought maybe the best thing to do was to have some sort of voice recognition software on my phone. And I thought, well, maybe someone out there knows a good one of those. So I have an Android phone, and what I'm asking you is there any I'd pay a little bit. I'd pay like a £5 for it. Is there any good quality software or apps that I can use to talk to the phone as I'm driving, to record almost like lists of things, and then I want to be able to access that list when I've stopped driving in some sort of really easily accessible way. And I'm happy to sort of share, like email like copy the text and share it to my my desktop and collate it all there. I need something on the road that will be accurate to taking into account my mumbly voice, and also can sort of capture that text. So anyone out there got anything to suggest? Right, so thank you very much for listening to my video. I'm back on the road on Wednesday, and I will obviously do a video then for that day. I'm going to say thank you. I'm going to say I hope that you are being successful, however you choose to find that word for yourselves. And I'm going to say thank you and farewell, friends.